Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. As most of you are aware, an individual named Nancy Ng went missing in Guatemala on Lake Atitlán on October 19th. She had been at a yoga retreat hosted by an individual who goes by Eddie Yoga, and apparently she was staying at Hotel Il Verde. Now, here is a picture from a previous year. Let me move Nancy out of the way here for a second, put her up in the corner. And this is from last year. This is the second year in a row that she's gone to the same retreat. And this is a last year picture, and there's Nancy right there. And you can see it's at Isla Verde, and it's at Atitlán. Now, Nancy went on this retreat last year, and she liked it so much she came back this year. On October 19th, she went kayaking with a bunch of other members of the yoga retreat. Now, Eddie of Eddie Yoga, he was supposed to pay for all the kayaking. All right. Now, what I did recently to get new information was I contacted the kayak company called Kayak Guatemala, who rented the kayaks. I was given permission to go over those emails, and we'll take a look at those right now. I think they shed light on the situation. So I emailed him, and then he said, Gray, there's really nothing to see here. It was a simple case of Nancy Ng drowning. The family cannot accept this for a variety of emotional reasons. Of course, it would be obvious if the body were recovered, but it's not common for bodies to be recovered after drowning in this lake, Lake Atitlán. There are scientific reasons for this. The depth of the lake is over 1,000 feet. It is the largest body of fresh water in Central America by volume. The water is cold, and there are underwater currents that move a body around continuously. People drown in this lake quite frequently, and most of the time the bodies are never recovered. The real thread to follow is the yoga group, especially the leader. They left the scene without permission of the authorities and refused to talk to the authorities. I suggest chasing that lead. I do not know the name of the group leader or his yoga studio. The family will not give that information to me. Maybe the authorities know. So in this exchange here, we find out that people who drown in Lake Atitlán are not often recovered because of the dynamics of the lake being 1,000 feet deep, cold water, which would slow down decomposition. As we all know, decomposition creates body gases that allow a body to float to the surface after 3, 4, 5 days. With it being very cold, maybe it would take much longer. And she was in pretty good shape, so once her lungs filled with water, she would have sank pretty rapidly. All right. So then there was another exchange where he answered more questions. He said, the surviving woman is an attorney. And when they say surviving woman, they're referring to, out of the 10 kayakers, you'll see here in a minute that 8 of them went back, and one of them went along with Nancy, and she was the attorney, and she's the one that apparently witnessed Nancy drowning, and she won't talk. And she's an attorney, and the kayak owner here thinks that she's not speaking because of that. I have no idea why the others in the group don't speak up. I mean, that is strange, right? Why don't the other 8 people that were in the water kayaking speak up at all? They shouldn't have anything to worry about because they came back first, and Nancy and the attorney went off and paddled off in another direction. And you'll hear about that here in a minute. And then he also said that none of them paid. And he said, we recovered the empty kayak fairly quickly during the initial search and rescue. So that part right there debunks the whole story that we keep hearing over and over and over again, how the kayak was never found. And yet it was found almost immediately, and that makes sense, right? She goes overboard, drowns. The kayak's just sort of floating around with the wind and so forth right there in the lake, and it would be easy just to see out in the lake. and they recovered it during the initial search. So it was never not missing, as the media reported. And this is probably the most significant of the email exchanges. It says, this map shows the route that the group took when they started their paddle. The group of 10 people arrived at our kayak center at 10:30 and started their paddle about 10 minutes later at 10:40. The group all took off together and paddled west. Now it says or to the right. That's because he sent me an upside down drawing here. This is what he sent me. And so this is backwards, where north is actually down here. And he's showing that they started off this way, the group did, just like that. And if you look at this picture here, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And apparently this is Nancy right here. And they're heading off in that direction. Now if you go down to Google Earth here and pick one of the 360-degree videos here, or images that people took, and you look this direction, you can see right here, here's the kayak shop right there. And if you look over here, you see that direction in the mountains, and absolutely matches up. See that? This is this mountain, and right there is this one, and that one's over there. Okay, it's just different type of lens used on the camera. So that image was taken likely right over here somewhere. So let's take another look at the map. On Google Earth here, get out of Street View, let's look down. I drew the same thing that he gave me, except with the correct orientation. So we'll read it again. The group returned to our kayak center at approximately 12 noon. And what the owner of the kayak company is saying is that 8 people returned. Nancy and another woman continued paddling to the east. We watched the 2 women continue paddling for a while, and ultimately they went out of field of vision. So all 10 of them went like this, and then somewhere in this area, those other 8 came back and went to the kayak shop, Kayak Guatemala, and then Nancy and the attorney paddled this way. Maybe they were just more adventurous. We don't know why they went off together. Perhaps some of the other 8 people might actually know the reason they paddle off together, but they don't talk. So they paddled this direction. And it says it was approximately 30 to 45 minutes later that the woman, the lawyer, who was with Nancy, got the attention of some workers on the lake shore in the area on the map with a house called Paxanax. Right? And here is Kata Paxanax right there. And apparently she came into the shore and got the attention of some individuals. The lawyer did. She was distressed and calling for help that Nancy had gone for a swim and disappeared. Within 5 minutes, 2 boats were dispatched and started combing the area looking for Nancy. So this is another thing that we need to clear up. There wasn't 24 hours before she was reported missing. She was reported missing immediately, and 2 boats were dispatched, and they were combing the area looking for Nancy. Now, maybe the family wasn't alerted for 24 hours, which is bad in its own right, but in this situation, the authorities were notified almost immediately, and as we hear here, within a very short order, additional boats were dispatched to the area, and the Guatemalan Navy arrived at 2. So the Guatemalan Navy was within there probably after she drowned, within an hour and a half actually. So the group leader indicated that he would pay for the group upon their return. So there's nothing nefarious about the other 8 individuals not paying, because the group leader had already informed the kayaking company, and thus the other 8 individuals, that he was going to be paying for the kayaking. So it's not weird anymore that they didn't pay. It's weird that the Eddie Yoga didn't pay for the other kayakers, okay? Because that's what he said he was going to do. For our part, we would like to know the name of the yoga group leader and his business. We have not been able to obtain this from the local authorities other than a first name Eduardo, and that's Eddie Yoga. Would you mind sharing it if you find out who the a-hole is? And we gave him that information. The Eddie Yoga, and he looked up the rest. Okay, life jackets are always offered before the activity starts, and we highly recommend their use. Everyone in this group declined. It's not required by law in the area. So there's nothing nefarious about them not wearing their life jackets. In fact, they all declined. We also know that the kayak was found almost immediately, and authorities were notified almost immediately. I used to be a swimmer, and I know that when I would swim and I was in pretty good shape, I would blow air out and I would sink rapidly. When you breathe out, you just sink pretty rapidly. So if she drowned somehow and her lungs filled with water, she would be quite deep by the time those boats even got out to try to find her. You'd have to deploy scuba divers really quickly to go look down and try to find her as she's sinking. All right, now I don't know the dynamics of the water, like if you stop sinking at a certain depth and temperature, that kind of thing. I do not know the answer to that. All right, so let's take a look at, so Casa Paxanax is right here. Cata Paxanax, excuse me, is right here, and here's a image from a dock. And so maybe right in this area, they yelled over to get some help. And when I say they, I just mean the attorney who hasn't spoken. So I think it's very strange at this point that none of the other yoga people, because they're so peaceful, they're just so zen, namaste everybody. And they're not going to come forward and say what they know, to give some answers to a family of a quote drowning victim. I mean, I think it's absolutely unbelievable that the attorney, the other 8 kayakers have said absolutely nothing. And the yoga instructor, what an embarrassment. Are you kidding me? Come forward, let people know what the hell happened. Maybe by now he's spoken, but you should have been right away doing what you should be doing. You should have paid actually for the kayaking, and then you should have called the family of Nancy and let them know what the hell happened. All right, now let's take a look at one more element here. The wind on the lake was blowing in this direction on that day at like 10 miles an hour. So it was heading north to southwest. So northeast to southwest, just like this. Now, it's possible, I guess, if she went underwater and she stayed relatively shallow, maybe, 10, 15 feet, 20 feet underwater, and the wind was blowing 10 miles an hour with the surface currents, that she drifted all the way over into this area, into this cove. And if you go down to Street View here, and you look at the dynamics of the water here, you can see why it might be difficult. Fortunately, this Street View image here is from November of 2016, which is the same time of year generally. And you can see, look at the algae blooms that are on top of the water. And I think when we go around this corner here, you'll see how difficult it would be if her body had actually drifted into this cove and then surfaced underneath one of these algae blooms here. Now let's go around this corner here, and I think this gives you a really good shot of it. See how thick that is right there? So if I was them, I'd go check this cove out really well and look underneath these algae blooms that seem to go all the way around. And it might be difficult, but I think that would be your best bet. If she did surface somewhere, that she'd be in that area. All right? So the reason this case still seems nefarious is because they're seemingly, for no reason at all, the other 8 kayakers aren't speaking. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't the other 8 kayakers say something? They all went out kayaking. They went back in earlier. They have no possible connection other than knowledge, perhaps, of what the other two are doing. Why did they take off together? You know, why did the attorney and Nancy head off in the other direction? We don't know the answer to that question, but maybe they do, but they're not talking. Why doesn't the attorney start talking more when, you know, if Nancy just got out of her kayak to go swimming, there's no possible nefarious connection. If they ever found her, you wouldn't be linked to anything. So it's very suspicious that even though you were the last person to be with her, this isn't like there was a murdered body found with knives sticking in it and you were the last person seen. This is something where it's an accident. She went swimming, drowned, and there is no perceivable reason why you can't come forward and speak. So Eddie, the other 9 kayakers, come forward, tell your story, and give the family some information so that they at least have some answers, okay? Because what you guys are doing is absolutely shameful and embarrassing to mankind. Oh, but you guys are in yoga. You're so in tune with mankind. But yet you don't act that way when it's needed, all right? So try to be better people, all right? So thank you guys, everybody, for watching. I'll be doing another live stream tonight. Not sure what I'll be covering, but I'll be doing a live stream nevertheless. So thank you very much for watching. And as I always say, everybody, until next time, be safe out there.